The conversation captured in this transcript dives deep into the swirling controversies surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination in September 2025, framing it as a pivotal moment that exposed fractures within the conservative movement, particularly around foreign policy, donor influence, and shifting alliances. It highlights Megyn Kelly's measured but explosive response during her appearance on the Hodge Twins podcast, where she refused to outright dismiss questions about potential foreign involvement in Kirk's death, opting instead for a candid "I don't know" that reverberated across online platforms and ignited intense debates. This wasn't some offhand remark from a fringe voice. It came from a seasoned media figure with a history of professional ties to Kirk, someone who had shared stages with him and witnessed his evolving perspectives firsthand. The energy here pulses with urgency, painting a picture of a movement at a crossroads where personal loyalties, financial pressures, and ideological battles collide in the wake of a shocking loss that many refuse to accept as mere coincidence. From the outset, the narrative underscores how Kirk had his finger firmly on the pulse of young conservatives and Republicans, sensing their growing disillusionment with endless foreign entanglements, especially the war dynamics that had already alienated independents and even portions of the Democratic base by the summer prior to his death. Young Republicans were turning in droves, a shift Kirk recognized and engaged with directly through forums and discussions that captured the raw sentiments of his audience. This context sets the stage for understanding why his final months mattered so profoundly, as he navigated pressures that tested his independence. Megyn Kelly's interview clip, amassing tens of thousands of likes and comments, didn't confirm conspiracies but opened the door to scrutiny by refusing to slam it shut. In a world where public figures often default to safe dismissals, her hesitation carried weight precisely because of her credibility, her documented relationship with Kirk, and her commitment to evidence over speculation. It transformed a simple question into a flashpoint, forcing observers to revisit the public record of Kirk's last weeks, the silences from his organization, and the broader tensions tearing at the fabric of conservatism. Delving further into Kelly's commentary reveals a richer tapestry than any single soundbite could convey. She spoke openly about her own journey alongside Kirk, both having started from positions of strong, unquestioning support that gradually eroded amid prolonged conflicts, and what they saw as excessive brutality that tested the loyalty of even their most ardent followers. By August 6, 2025, just weeks before the tragic events, Kelly and Kirk appeared together, pushing back against demands for unconditional allegiance, criticizing what they described as moral blackmail tactics aimed at silencing dissent on foreign government policies. They called out the attacks on character and accusations of anti-Semitism leveled at anyone daring to question certain actions. Kirk, in particular, expressed resentment toward donor pressures pushing him to maintain hardline stances and to avoid platforming voices like Tucker Carlson, who had already broken ranks. He contemplated returning donations and pondered the future direction of Turning Point USA, wondering if the organization would align with what some influential backers deemed the wrong side. This public exchange, preserved and accessible, marked a turning point that many now see as central to the mysteries surrounding his assassination. The timeline sharpens the intrigue. Kirk was attacked and killed on September 10, 2025, following a period of documented friction. Clips from Kelly's show circulated widely, including one detailing conversations where Kirk discussed donor leverage, policy shifts, and Turning Point's trajectory with Carlson. Kelly described Kirk's thinking as evolving toward more open critiques, aligning in some ways with positions held by Owens and Carlson. Her emotional tribute alongside Erika Kirk in November 2025, where tears flowed as she portrayed Charlie as closer to faith than most, contrasted sharply with her later ambiguity. By mid-2026, That I Don't Know on Potential Foreign Roles landed amid a backdrop of extraordinary context, including investigative reports from outlets like The Gray Zone and corroborations from figures such as Candace Owens and Andrew Clavon regarding Kirk's texts. In the lead-up to his death, Kirk faced organized campaigns from pro-Israel donor networks urging him to reverse course. He turned down substantial funding infusions, declined invitations tied to high-level visits, and continued elevating critics of certain policies, including Carlson, Kelly herself, and others like Dave Smith. These actions, detailed in authenticated messages, spoke to a man resisting bullying, even as he vented frustrations about stereotypes and coercion in private communications that later surfaced publicly. Erika Kirk's public responses add another layer of complexity and fuel for criticism, while she has emphasized continuity with Charlie's support for Israel and its people. Highlighting shared values and the importance of the alliance, her appearances such as the CBS Town Hall with Bari Weiss in December 2025 drew scrutiny for what some perceived as polished but evasive tones. She stressed combating extremism through dialogue on campuses, events like Shabbat dinners at major gatherings, and fostering understanding across divides. Yet critics juxtapose this against Charlie's own fiery on-camera rage just weeks earlier, where he decried moral blackmail and unconditional demands without hesitation. The choice of outlets like CBS, recently under new ownership influences, and the New York Times, long targets of Charlie's ire, intensified perceptions of a directional shift. Comment sections exploded with questions about authenticity, wondering why a widow channeling her husband's legacy would engage platforms he frequently lambasted. Supporters see it as pragmatic leadership in grief. Detractors view it as a subtle redirection away from the battles Charlie waged in his final stretch. Expanding on these dynamics, the conservative movement finds itself grappling with deeper ideological rifts that Kirk's death only amplified. His authenticated texts, confirmed by close associates, reveal a man grappling with the weight of financial dependencies that clashed with his principles, losing multi-million-dollar annual commitments from donors like Robert Schulman, who publicly withdrew support at a Los Angeles gala just days before the assassination, underscored the stakes. Kirk's words, just lost another huge Jewish donor $2 million a year. Because we won't cancel Tucker. Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, echoed a defiance that resonated with segments tired of perceived foreign policy orthodoxies. This wasn't abstract. It played out against a backdrop of campus activism, policy forums, an internal turning point, debates about no-war stances on certain fronts, anti-interventionism, and prioritizing domestic issues. The pressure campaigns, involving not just funding threats, but public denunciations, created an environment where Kirk's independence became both his strength and, some argue, his vulnerability. Further broadening the analysis, one must consider the human elements at play. Erika Kirk stepped into an enormous role not through decades of climbing political ladders, but through profound personal loss, transitioning from private life as a wife, reality TV personality, and realtor to leading an $80 million organization. Her endorsements, such as the full-throated support for Spencer Pratt in the Los Angeles mayoral race, praised his unconventional, citizen-driven approach to tackling urban decay, positioning it as authentically American problem-solving. Yet the timing, mere days after Thomas Massey's costly primary defeat in one of the most expensive House races ever, fueled by heavy external spending, raised eyebrows. Charlie had repeatedly lauded Massey as a favorite for his fiscal conservatism, transparency pushes on sensitive files, and resistance to leadership orthodoxies. Massey's advocacy for releasing documents and co-sponsoring related legislation drew significant opposition from the same networks Kirk had clashed with. Erika's silence on Massey, the primaries, and the donor texts contrasted with her vocal cultural posts on issues like women's sports and other priorities, leading observers to question whether the organization was pivoting toward broader appeal or away from Charlie's late evolution. This gap fuels ongoing civil wars in conservative media. Megyn Kelly's positioning stands out as uniquely influential yet cautious. Not an insider to Turning Point, nor a family intimate in the Owens mold, she leverages her platform to defend inquiry without endorsing full narratives. Her defense of Owens's right to probe uncomfortable angles, even amid aggressive pushback from Shapiro and others labeling such efforts as divisive, highlighted fractures. Kelly acknowledged the challenges Erika faces in balancing factions, pro-donor elements, non-interventionist wings, and grassroots activists, all while honoring a legacy under immense scrutiny. The "I don't know" wasn't evasion, but a call for evidence amid documented timelines, the August forum, text messages, platforming decisions, and the rapid launch of speculative political vehicles like vanskirk2028.com shortly after the death. Public reactions, from X threads to Parcast episodes, amplify these tensions, with users dissecting posting frequencies, media strategies, and policy silences as signals of intent. To truly grasp the energy of this discourse, consider the broader implications for the right. Charlie Kirk built Turning Point as a youth mobilization force, emphasizing patriotism, free speech, and skepticism of endless wars. His final months suggested a maturation or shift, prioritizing America first without reflexive foreign commitments, venting about coercion that stereotyped critics, and fostering dialogue with diverse voices within conservatism. The assassination timing, mere days after public donor spats and gala confrontations, invites relentless questions. Was it random tragedy or culmination of pressures? Kelly's ambiguity, rooted in personal knowledge of Kirk's frustrations, contrasts with demands for closure. Erika's approach, focusing on healing, faith, and continuity in select areas while expanding visibility, earns praise for resilience, but criticism for omissions. The donor texts remain unaddressed publicly by her, despite their authentication and circulation, creating a vacuum filled by speculation. Expanding this examination, the role of media and public perception cannot be overstated. Outlets across the spectrum covered the events with varying lenses, but conservative infighting dominated. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and others amplified calls for transparency on the pressures Kirk documented, citing his loyalty to friends and principles over financial expediency. Kelly's evolution from tearful stage moments with Erika to podcast candor reflects a media landscape where loyalty to truth seeking clashes with institutional incentives. Critics argue Erika's CBS and Night engagements signal accommodation to forces Charlie opposed, potentially diluting Turning Point's edge. Supporters counter that pragmatic outreach sustains the mission amid grief, allowing focus on campus initiatives, anti-extremism dialogues, and cultural battles like transgender policies in sports. Yet the pattern, endorsing pro-establishment figures like Pratt while silent on Massey, fuels narratives of redirection. This isn't mere personal preference. It concerns the soul of an organization claiming Kirk's mantle. Further layers emerge when considering the human cost and emotional undercurrents. Kirk's public rage against blackmail revealed a man unwilling to compromise core independence. Even as private vents showed exhaustion with the games, Erika, navigating widowhood under spotlight, faces expectations no one could fully prepare for. Her faith-centered messages, emphasizing broken humanity needing redemption and dialogue over hate, resonate deeply with supporters seeking unity. However, the unresolved donor saga and policy silences leave room for doubt. Online commentators point to increased posting, cultural forays, and strategic appearances as building a personal brand beyond organizational duties, potentially for future ambitions. The website launch post-death only heightened such theories, though unconfirmed. In this charged atmosphere, Kelly's I don't know serves as a bridge, validating questions without inflaming them, urging evidence-based reflection on timelines, texts, and decisions. Delving deeper into the political chessboard, the Massey primary exemplifies external influences at work. With over $32 million poured in, attacks from high levels, and turning point action amplifying certain narratives, the defeat symbolized larger battles over transparency and restraint. Charlie's affection for Massey, rooted in shared skepticism of unchecked power, contrasted with post-death silences. Pratt's campaign, unconventional and focused on local revival, drew Erika's praise for citizen engagement, yet its alignments invited scrutiny given donor overlaps. These choices, alongside campus programs promoting understanding and events bridging divides, paint a leadership style prioritizing coalition building. But for purists, they risk softening the anti-bullying, America-centric edge Kirk embodied late in life. The conservative Civil War thus revolves around authenticity. Does Erika extend Charlie's final trajectory or recalibrate towards safer traditional paths? Public discourse thrives on these ambiguities. Commenters decry perceived disingenuousness and heightened visibility, contrasting it with quieter times during Charlie's life. Others applaud adaptation in a fragmented media ecosystem. Kelly's unique stance, defending inquiry, citing personal observations of Kirk's shifts toward Owens-Carlson critiques, while noting factional balancing acts, adds nuance. She highlights the impossibility of easy unity, with pro-donor and anti-war elements pulling oppositely. Charlie's documented resistance to deplatforming, his loyalty, and his moderate public tones masking private frustrations provide context for interpreting silences. The texts, showing resolve against coercion and stereotypes, demand confrontation if the mission claims fidelity. Without direct address, gaps persist, sustaining debates on X, podcasts, and forums. This story encapsulates more than one death. It mirrors a movement reckoning with its identity, post-2024 shifts, foreign policy fatigue, and internal power struggles. Young conservatives, once energized by Kirk's pulse reading, now witness leadership transitions, testing those foundations. Donor networks, policy evolutions, and media strategies intersect with grief, ambition, and principle. Megyn Kelly's caution, far from conspiracy mongering, models thoughtful restraint amid extraordinary evidence. It challenges Erika and Turning Point to bridge documented words with current directions. Until addressed substantively, the pressures, texts, endorsements, silences. The questions linger, driving engagement and soul-searching. The internet persists, demanding clarity on whether the organization honors Kirk's full legacy or charts a moderated course. This tension, unresolved, defines the era's conservative crossroads where evidence, loyalty, and vision collide. To elaborate extensively on these themes, consider the ripple effects across generations. Kirk's appeal to youth stemmed from unfiltered authenticity, challenging status quos on campuses rife with ideological battles. His late critiques of prolonged conflicts and donor leverage resonated with those weary of overseas costs, draining domestic vitality. Post-assassination, Turning Point's trajectory under Erika involves sustaining that energy through dialogues, exhibits, and faith integrations, yet omissions on key frictions risk alienating the very base attuned to Charlie's shifts. Reports and texts provide verifiable anchors, rejections of funding, platforming decisions, gala withdrawals, all building a case for why I don't know carries potency from Kelly's mouth. Her professional restraint contrasts with more aggressive voices, offering space for evidence to emerge without premature closure. This approach preserves credibility in polarized times, where accusations fly freely. Further, the human stories behind figures like Schulman and Massey illustrate systemic pressures. Public denunciations and massive ad spends reveal how influence operates, testing leaders' resolve. Kirk's refusal to yield, even contemplating full breaks, exemplified a fighter's spirit. Erika's navigation, balancing legacy with viability, invites empathy alongside accountability. Her Pratt endorsement celebrates grassroots problem-solving in failing cities, aligning with American ingenuity themes central to conservatism. Yet pairing it with Massey quietude highlights selective emphases. Broader cultural posts on sports fairness and related issues expand reach, potentially attracting new demographics, but raise fidelity queries. In conservative media, this sparks proxy wars. Owens hammering gaps, Carlson noting evolutions, Kelly threading needles. The result? A vibrant, contentious ecosystem mirroring democracy's messiness. Expanding on timelines, the 4 days between Schulman's gala remarks and the assassination fuel temporal speculations, corroborated by investigations. Kirk's on-stage candor with Kelly days earlier, raging against character assaults, painted a defiant portrait. His texts, venting stereotypes while affirming independence, humanized the struggle against perceived entrapment. Erika's CBS appearance, addressing support continuity and extremism combat via dialogue and student engagement, Project Stability. Yet viewers familiar with Charlie's media distrust noted ironies, questioning strategic pivots. New York Times interactions similarly signal outreach, but clash with past institutional critiques. These decisions, pragmatic or not, form patterns critics dissect endlessly. The faith dimension adds profundity, references to broken humanity, scriptural unity across testaments, and guarding hearts amid enemy-occupied territory underscore resilience narratives. Kelly's tributes and Erika's emphases weave personal loss with public duty, yet political questions transcend grief. Turning Point's $80 million scale demands transparency on directions, especially regarding donor texts unaddressed despite authentication. Kelly's observation of faction-holding efforts acknowledges real challenges, sustaining donors without alienating independence, honoring history while adapting. Her "I don't know" thus embodies epistemic humility, urging better answers on gaps between Charlie's authenticated words and organizational messaging. In sum, this transcript captures a movement in flux, where one man's evolution, tragic end, and widow's stewardship ignite debates on loyalty, power, and purpose. Doubling down on analysis reveals layers of strategy, emotion, and ideology demanding resolution. Public scrutiny, fueled by digital amplification, ensures the story endures until clarity emerges on pressures faced, silence is maintained, and missions redefined. The energy remains electric, propelling conservatives to confront uncomfortable alignments between past defiance and present paths, all while honoring a figure whose pulse on youth endures through unresolved questions.